Hey, welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. Great to have you with us again this week. I'm here with Pastor Cady, who is the pastor of Whitefields Community Church here in Longmont, Colorado. And if you have been following along with us, you know that we're in our series called Desiring the Kingdom as we're studying through the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. And if you were not able to hear the sermon from Sunday, please go over to whitefieldschurch.com and it's all the information down below, and you can download it there. It'll be up on the podcast already, wherever you listen, Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, all those fun places where you like to listen to your podcasts. And if you would take the time just to hit the subscribe button, the like button for this video, or this if you're listening on a podcast, and just it helps get this out far and wide. And but again, we were looking at chapter 10 this past Sunday. Chapters 9 and 10, and the sermon title is called Into the Zone. And we're not going to cover too much about what the sermon was about, so you can go over there and download it, of course. But it's a very interesting verse. We come to First Kings chapter 10, verse 14. It says, "Now the weight of the gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold." 666. And of course, where do we find this? It's in Revelation, at the end of Revelation chapter 13. Two places in Scripture that present this number to us, which has, of course, super significance, depending on who you are within Christendom. So, we wanted to discuss a little bit about this number, 666, today.
Yeah, so the big question is this number in 1 Kings, is it related to Revelation? Is Revelation referring back to this in any way? Is there any connection at all? Or is it just, it happens to be 666 talents of gold, and that's just how much it was, and it means nothing? People go back and forth on this issue. I do have a theory, but let me explain to you what the whole 666 thing is. So Revelation chapter 13, it tells us about two beasts, one who will come up from the earth, it says, the other one who will come up from the sea. And this one, the second beast, is the one that we generally refer to as the Antichrist. And so it says this at the end of Revelation 13, final verse. It says, "This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666. And of course, there's been a lot of speculation over the years as to what this means. I'll give you a few ideas, and then I'll give you one possible tie-in to 1 Kings chapter 10. The main theories on this are two. One is that there's a kind of significance of numbers in the Bible. We see this, for example, the number 7, very significant. 7 days in a week, 6 days plus 1. The number 40 is very significant in the Bible. 40 years in the wilderness, 40 days of rain, right, during the flood in Noah's time. Also, the number 12, of course, is 12 tribes. All of these things. So these numbers are repeated over and over and over. And what is the significance of them? Well, they have symbolic significance. They show continuity for these things. The number 7 generally is referred to as is seen in the Bible as number of perfection, and it's correlated in threes, right? So 3, you think about the Trinity. So you have this idea of kind of completion in threes, and the divine number in 7. And so the idea with 666 is it's a unholy trinity, so to say, of falling short. So 6 is sometimes called the number of man. And the idea there is that it falls short of the glory of God. And that would be, correlates with a lot of stuff we read in Romans, right? That we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Or like what David says in the Psalm where he says, "You have made man a little lower than the angels." So it's this idea that we are not on the same level with God. We're a step down. So that's the idea of 6. So the number of a man. But here's what's so interesting. It says calculate it. Okay, so that's caused a lot of people over the years to think that this is related to a Jewish practice, which was common during the time that the Bible was written, called gematria. And gematria is the practice. What they would do is they would assign each letter in the Hebrew alphabet. They also did it in Greek, but specifically Hebrew matters for this one. They would assign each letter in the Hebrew alphabet with a numerical value. And then they would take a name like your name, and you take all the letters of your name, and then they would add them up to a numerical value. Now, here's what's interesting. If you take the word beast in Hebrew and you do that gematria practice with it, the number adds up to 666. There's another name that also, if you do that, adds up to 666, and is the name Caesar Nero. So you take the name Caesar Nero in Hebrew and do the letters in Hebrew, it adds up to 666 with this practice. So that's led to people saying, okay, maybe, so two options here. Maybe Nero is being referred to here in cryptic language. But if we take a futurist approach to Revelation, which I think we should based on how Revelation's written, then we would say, well, it might be somebody, therefore, who is similar to Nero, but not necessarily Nero himself. Now, how does this tie into 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 14? Here's what I would say is that I think it's also possible that it's saying, let the person, who have understanding, let them be wise, let them calculate, let them figure it out. The number is 666 and he is a man. I think it's possible that what it's also doing is drawing a correlation between Solomon and this person who will come, this Antichrist figure. And I think perhaps it could be saying that the Antichrist figure will be someone like Solomon. And maybe it wants us to draw those lines and make that connection between the Old Testament and New Testament and say, this is the only other place in the Bible where this number is found, and it's found in the life of Solomon when Solomon began to depart from the Lord and disobey the Lord in his heart, which would mean maybe that Solomon, just as Solomon started out as, we might even say, a man of God, a man with a heart for God, and then drifted away, turned away from God. And as we're going to see in our study of chapter 11 next week, he turns away completely. He becomes apostate. Some people would say maybe what this is saying is it's possible that the Antichrist figure will not be somebody who's just wholly evil, but somebody who started out good, perhaps even started out as a person of God, and then turned away completely and went apostate. So.
Wow, that is very interesting. That kind of correlation is very reasonable as you think about Lucifer, Satan, who started out in heaven and then turned, his back on God and was, of course, cast from heaven. You have that kind of same thing. So it's definitely something that's very, very feasible. And of course, you're dealing in the realm of speculation here.
Absolutely.
We can't really know. But of course, this has, many books have been written on this, many speculations. Whole occupations of Christian numerology have been created from understanding what that 666 means, and it is very interesting, and we can't discount it. But I think it's also important that use the word cryptic, and there's just been over the years this idea that we somehow have to decipher, and that someone's going to find the secret code. And I think whenever we come across those kind of things, for me at least, it's always a red flag. Like, God, I need to somehow decipher your will. I need to somehow decipher what you want for your people, and I think that's where a lot of people have fallen prey or fallen, into, different camps and things like that. And it's pretty much in the realm of speculation for many of these things. And so I think it's important, at least for the viewers, that when somebody comes up and says they have the key or they have unlocked something, that they need to, step back and take maybe a very cautious approach to whatever they have to say.
Yeah, and God's word is very clear on the things that it intends to be clear about, right? So if these things are not clear, if they are cryptic, they're intentionally cryptic. And the things that are not cryptic, they're not, right? So the things that are really important for us to know, God doesn't hide his will, right, from us. He wants us to know what he wants us to know.
Yeah, and we're grateful that the gospel is not cryptic. It is clear, plain, and simple for us to understand. But just as a plug for your own blog, nickcady.org. If you haven't been able to subscribe to Pastor Nick's blog, you have recently put out a blog on the vaccines, the DNA, kind of all this kind of tied into the end times and all that kind of stuff. So I just encourage you, as a viewer, to go over and take a read and comment and just, what do you think about what's going on with all these things? I think it's a very well written blog, and just something else just to add, some clarity to this subject. But very, very interesting, and we'll continue with 1 Kings chapter 11. We hope to see you then. And so if you haven't had a chance to subscribe, like this video, please go and do that. whitefieldschurch.com. You can go download the sermon. It was very good. And also podcasts, everything is up there, Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. God bless.